LMA, talking about 5e roleplay tools. This ominous background music. I gotta refresh my chat. Gosh, I'm just a mess tonight.
How dare you?
Which is why I love having these great friends that pick me up when I'm down.
That's what
hey, thanks for the host, Biggie Paw. Thanks, guys.
Lean on me
when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on.
DMCA.
No, I promise you, we're so off tune, DMC would not click that.
No robot would be able to.
It won't be long
till you.
Robert, you have to.
Yeah, you're the karaoke guy, Robert. Do it.
No, Biggie clipped it. He's gonna turn it into the police.
Love it. Let me kick down the music. That's too ominous for this great song.
Although, I do like that ominous vampire music.
No, it's still in the background. Hey, Amanda. Hey, Toriano. Willie. All these. Thank you so much, everybody. We're late tonight. It'll still be a quick, fun LMA, and one which will be led tonight by our own Thomas. You know him as Alcott. And
Speaking
also
of
the
Alcott.
DM of Monster of the Week. Go ahead.
Because I need some guarantees for hosting this stream, John, and I will hold you hostage.
What? Okay, wait. No, so I got to go live with video for this. All right, so here we go. So should be chat 3 with Ninja.
Robert knows exactly where I'm going.
Wait, there we go.
Manda, there's still time.
All right. I am joined tonight by Robert. And he's been on quite, you know him as Phantom NJ, also leader of the Friday Night Crusades, also running some cool streams on Time Lord Wife's channel over the last couple of weeks. Great, really well attended. And so we'd love to have you with us tonight, Robert, as you have been often. And then this guy, Thomas Alcott, a wizard extraordinaire, but also runs all of our Monster of the Week streams. And he's going to be the lead on this stream tonight. And so I'll let you kind of kick us off. Go ahead, Thomas.
Sweet. Hi, guys. Welcome to LMA number, you said it already, something. It doesn't say it on the stream title.
No, because it's 59. I had a problem. 59. Yeah, we got it. Perfect.
Not that episode number really matters for LMA. You can watch these in whatever order you really feel like. But today we'll be talking about specifically 5e role-playing tools and the tips that can kind of help you with to make a brand new character. This stream is more kind of geared toward newer players who might have never stepped into a TTRPG before, who might be looking for some helpful tools to get them into it. That, you know, it's an overwhelming world, and the more and more popular it becomes, the more and more overwhelming it seems to become to make this like really in-depth and deep character that has
so one quick curveball for you here is we have Robert, who is the principal provocateur of all things castles and crusades and troll lore games. So there might be things. Yeah, so I want that to be included tonight as well. So TLG 5e. Let's jump into how you can help your players role play. And Thomas, you are in charge.
All right, so we're kind of talking character creation from the ground up,
clipped
right?
our lean on me. No, Toriano, please delete that. Stop.
Oh, it's in the chat.
Yeah, it's in the chat. He clipped it. Gosh.
So character creation from the ground up can be pretty intimidating for a new player, or it can be very, very easy. And that just depends on what perspective you're coming at it from. If you come at it from the perspective of, I have to make this in-depth, deep character who has so many meanings and breaks tropes, then you're going to have a hard time because you don't have to do any of those things. What I always recommend doing, and one thing that you should do when you're creating a character, is find some inspiration that you have from something else. Pablo Picasso said it best: good artists create, great artists steal. And that's not a bad thing, because there's so many other good things in the world that have already been created, and you should use those as inspiration. For me, there's like multiple different categories that I tend to go with. My first character ever was a very generic trope. It was Legolas. I basically just made Legolas. It was a ranger. He was an elf. He had the long blonde hair. It was like the whole thing. Robert's given me the face. but it was
it's funny because mine had absolutely nothing to do with any inspiration from anywhere.
And that's totally fine too. But like, you can get inspired.
Well, no, wait. Hold on. Let me challenge Robert on that. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to be quiet as I can today. Thank you, Bloodwild, for the sub. Steve, been here for from the beginning, from the jump. Great fan. Thank you, Steve. Can you really say you were not influenced by any trope, any subject, any book, any movie you read? You just had this utter genesis from your soul.
It was funny because when I first started playing, my cousin introduced me to the game, and it wasn't really. I mean, I was 8 years old at the time. I wasn't collecting. Didn't have like comics collection. Didn't have cable TV, so there weren't a lot of movies out at the time. And my first character was a thief, and I honestly can't remember why my younger brother. Get this, our first characters were essentially not quite murder hobos, but we were a thief and assassin basically robbing houses.
Yeah.
Good Catholic school boys that we were. I mean, it was like the literal opposite of everything.
It's reverse inspiration.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. It's reverse inspiration.
Okay, if you want to go reverse inspiration, that was as close as we came. But I don't think we were even thinking that hard about it.
No,
it was. We looked down. They looked like interesting. My cousin might have even nudged us. I'm not sure.
No, look, I love that, Robert, and I think I might have confessed this before, but perhaps not. I rooted for Jaws. I rooted for Darth Vader. I always was the guy that was supporting the villains in the story. So the anti-heroes then came my paladin love. As I matured, it was probably a backlash from those early days of supporting the villans.
I mean, I would have looked down at all the things the thief could do at first level and say, "Ooh, this is cool."
Yeah.
It could have been that simple.
And there's nothing explicitly wrong with doing that at all. In fact, there's nothing wrong with it implicitly either, because it's inspiration that you're taking from some source. That's
sure.
Right.
You should do that. But, John mentioned Darth Vader and stuff like that. You can also take inspiration from movies, comic books, TV characters that you enjoy. And those are some of my favorites. Like for me, one of my characters that I play in the podcast Heart of Adventure, Thoradin, was originally a barbarian, and then at some point he started taking levels in monk, and I got very inspired from Hulk, from the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Avengers, specifically the first Avengers movie where he says, "That's the secret, I'm always angry." I really gained inspiration from that, as a barbarian monk combo is not very often heard of. But I liked that combo, and I think
that's a great I think that makes perfect sense. Like barbarian, typically heavily martial, lightly armored, but would normally wield an axe or some other weapon. But a monk, also lightly armored, heavily martial. So I love that mix of barbarian.
It was very nice. And 5e had recently introduced a subclass for monk that was called Kensei, which is essentially a weapon master. And so it fit very nicely for me into that niche.
All right, so challenging you really quickly.
That inspiration.
Have you ever read the 1E, 2E Oriental Adventures set, which had all kinds of modifications of
I think I've read a
classes?
couple of things in there once or twice when I was looking for inspiration.
Yeah, these are things I think which were contained there, but I love what 5e is doing to bring them back. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah.
So going on that, it's funny you mentioned both Oriental Adventures and the Barbarian. Unearthed Arcana, which I have many issues with Unearthed Arcana. I've mentioned a couple of them, especially what they did to paladins in that book. But probably my first character that I truly loved was a 1E barbarian. I know Conan the Barbarian was out at the time, had already been out, and I know that I had seen it. I don't know how much of an influence it was. It had to be at least some, but my first real true main thing that I would call a main character of my own would have been my barbarian. He's the first one that I can remember really being concerned about whether or not the character lived or died.
I agree.
No, that's great. So Arthur Conan Doyle had this entire universe he created. Conan was an influence on some of the original D&D stuff, but it's not something that should be limiting, and we draw from all these universes. Robert, please continue. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just think I love that stuff.
That's right. Oriental Adventures, on the other hand, and now I understand. Growing up now, I understand some of the issues with it. But back then, that was the age of Bruce Lee movies, various kung fu movies being out, and the ninja movies had just started really hitting the U.S. Shokazugi and all those various movies. These were all on my mind. So when honestly, my problems with Unearthed Arcana actually ended up resulting in me in playing a lot of Oriental adventures, running a lot of those adventures, having samurai, ninjas, and whether or not all those things should have been together. I was too young at the time to truly appreciate it, but I love those things.
Yeah, and another thing that you kind of mentioned in there, one of my things that I can sometimes use inspiration for is unique and cool moments that I want to see in game, or cool weapons that I know of outside of game. One of those that I recently made a character for is there's a weapon called an urumi, which is an Indian whip sword. It's a sword that is made of flexible metal that is meant to be slashed around and about to kind of confuse the enemy. And I created a pirate of sorts that uses that, and a bow that has a shield on his arm. So he, shield bow, and then when enemies get in close, he brings out his whip sword and confuses the enemy to push them back. There's an interesting combo, and I like that idea in theory. Maybe not in practice, it ends up being all that powerful, but it's nice because pretty much any weapon you can take and just slightly reskin it based on dice and damage. Talk with your DM, of course, and just name it something else, make it something different. Like the Urumi is just going to be a scimitar, same range, same damage, but it just is differently flavored in combat. Sure. Any thoughts on those things?
Listen, as far as like homebrewing content things, it was a lot easier back then, I think, because it was a lot easier to tell when something was going to be overpowered. Now, with all the different variations, sometimes you don't realize the problems until much later.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we would borrow different things as far as like weapons and such. And even things that like would disappear over the years, we'd find ways to bring them back. Like the amount of weapons content in 1E, it changed over the years, and they kind of simplified it. And sometimes I think to its detriment. One of the things I love about Castles and Crusades is they brought a lot of it back.
And that's one thing
never left.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I don't think you should feel limited by when creating a character. If you have a specific idea, talk to your DM about it and see if they're willing to allow it. Your DM is obviously the line of defense, but you are the player, and they're there to make a world for you. If it makes sense, there shouldn't be any reason why it can't fit within that world.
No, and that's, I think, a great piece of counsel there, Thomas, because ultimately, whatever game system, 5e, 1e, Castles and Crusades, Zweihander, whatever you're playing, DMs can help you. And as a DM, I have pretty heavy restrictions on how I like my players to run their game, their PCs, but when a player comes to me and says, oh, I have this twist, this idea, this kind of customization, I kind of go gaga over that. I just love when players put that emphasis on the role play and the background story, and they can almost push anything past me except dinosaurs.
And I don't want to mention the backup character that I created for Alcott, but this is specifically what I did with that backup character. I had a very out-of-the-box idea for a simple, what's called archetype in Pathfinder, which is just a slight change on a base class. And John ran with it. He took it and he was like, yes, I like this. Here's some things we can do. Here's some things that make more sense, that are slightly more powerful than what I was initially anticipating. But, we're also, if it's a backup character, it's going to be 10th or 11th level. So I tend to be pretty cautious with my character creation because I want to give the DM tools to work with, which I think as a new player, you should never overwrite your character, because if you do that, you're going to almost write yourself into a corner where you know everything about your character and you will never be surprised at the things your DM has to throw at you. Let yourself create blanks in your character sheet. I see that you have a thought, Robert, but I want to finish this thought really quick.
Go ahead.
As a DM, I have something, and we'll get to this a little later, that I have called knife theory. I found it in a subreddit at one point, but when you're creating a character, create a number of knives that you can hand to your DM and let them stab you with them. Like, I owe this debt to this guild, or my mom, I'm very close with my character's mom. Or in Alcott's character's case, he doesn't know why his brother died, and his father told him to leave the house, which John took and ran with. Like, if I usually tell my players to give me 3 knives, 1 medium and 2 hard knives that I can throw at them at any point. Like, give me something good that I can really, really stab you with and poke you with.
If you give one of your family members as a knife, I mean, that's cool. Just make sure that the DM is not the type to assume that everybody's okay with that choice, because not everyone wants to offer that as a knife.
Yeah, of course. That's why when I give the option to players, they tell me what their knives are, and I then react in a way that makes sense to them.
So, in the spirit of character creation, one of the things you mentioned, not basically going too far with it, is I think there's a responsibility on the part of the DM to work with the player.
Totally.
Have that. Make sure that the character, especially for newer players, because they're it's going to be something brand new to them, is to work with them so that whatever they come up with, it works within the framework of the adventure, or especially if it's in the campaign. I mean, a one shot. I'm kind of with the one shot. A lot of times, I'm kind of anything goes, because it doesn't really matter. You can have fun with it in the session itself without having to worry about long-term ramifications. In the spirit of a campaign, it's got to work and that's not to say you tell the player no, but you can make adjustments. There's got to be give and take on both sides. Adjust it in such a way, make recommendations. This is how it might work. Does this work for you? Give them options.
Well said.
The player has choice, and it doesn't become campaign breaking.
Right.
Yeah, and Red Hulk mentioned this in chat, and it's, I think, and I know we're mostly talking about players right now, but as DMs, setting up a session 0 that creates, if you're starting a new campaign, creates expectations for what the world is like, what characters would usually be like, and how you want the game to play out, and then have the players create characters right then and there, is hugely important for setting up those boundaries that Robert is talking about, and not creating confusion in character creation, because you as a DM can be there in the moment to help them create characters, because nowadays it's really easy to go online to any number of character creators and just make a character.
Yeah, you're seeing that being automated now. It's happening a lot.
Back even when I started, which was not terribly long ago, we didn't have any of these tools, and it was all still pen and paper. And now we have stuff like D&D Beyond. I have a personal tool that I use called DM's Vault that automates a lot of it. But
wait till the NFTs start hitting with characters that are created through non-fungible tokens. It's coming.
Oh God!
No, it's happening.
Buy a character.
Yeah,
I'm just so already done with NFT.
No, there's more coming there. I promise you guys. That's not sort of an offhand comment.
Speaking of these character builders, that's actually one thing I wanted to speak about tonight. D&D Beyond is a really, really nice tool that John has fallen head over heels in love with, because it's so simple. It just doesn't exist for other editions of D&D. Pathfinder is currently working on it for 2E. And they have said if enough interest is generated, they will also create it for 1E.
So which of you out there will create D&D Beyond for Pathfinder 1E, for D&D Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 1 and 2E, 3.5, Pathfinder 1E? It would be easy. Import the rule sets, the overlays, and the UI could just plug in the background.
Basically, I mean, with that, as long as the demiplane, I think it's demiplane.
Demiplane,
yeah. Demiplane. As soon as if that takes off, and they call it the Nexus. The Pathfinder 2E is coming. It's all the original. It's a lot of the original people who created D&D Beyond in the first place.
Yep.
Adam Bradford and company. But they've already got, the next thing that they're doing is World of Darkness. So Vampire the Masquerade and all that. That's, if you look at their site, it says coming soon.
Sweet.
It's already, that's in the works. So I'm assuming as long as that keeps taking off, they'll just keep going. I mean, they're basically, you're going to have D&D Beyond for licensed Wizards of the Coast content, and then Demiplane is probably going to have everything else.
Yeah, the problem is licensure, honestly.
Well, and D&D Beyond has a lot. I mean, they are very restricted. Used to watch the development streams, and they talk about why there were certain things they couldn't do because it had to be part of the core, official content, or otherwise they had to have permission from Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah. But we're not here to talk about law and license and any of that. It's just cool. And so D&D Beyond is a great way to build a character sheet if you've never done it before, especially because it has this quick build feature.
All right, rein us back in, Thomas. Well done, sir. All right, bring us back to the point of the stream. And by the way, thank you, Steve, Bloodwild, Werewolf the Apocalypse. No, we do not want anyone that is going to try to create a D&D comment sort of structure around my setup for new players. Like that's a horrible idea, Steve. But let Thomas take it away.
So this is after I've got my inspiration for my character. What I personally do, because I'm pretty experienced with D&D, is I make a 20th level character sheet because it's almost like a template that I can build up through as I level them up. That's what I do. That is not something a new player should do because you will never, ever, ever see that 20th level character. I promise you, they'll die at level 2 and you'll be so sad.
Do they get to level 2?
They will all die at level 1.
They get to level 2?
But it's nice because it lets you. I am a person who loves to see all the options.
Can you zoom in a little bit so it's bigger on the screen here? Because this is so cool. This is what I wanted to get to in the meat of it.
And so it's nice because D&D Beyond allows you to look at, like, there's so many race options, right? Like, you could be an Aasimar, like Irda. You could be a human. You could be half-elf, half-orc. Like, there's so many things. And it tells you what that gives. If you, I think it does, doesn't it? It should. I guess not, but it will later. But it's mostly as a quick build. It's giving you a guide of, like, pick a race. Just tell me what you want to play. So, like, let's say we want to be a half-orc, and a half-orc bard is what we want to be. So we can easily pick those two things. We can give them a character name now. We don't have to. That might be something that comes in later. And boom, it's created the character sheet for us. We didn't have to roll stats. We didn't do any of the complicated stuff. We can just look at our character sheet. It's actually
quick build. I'm sorry.
It did the quick build, so it automatically put the highest numbers in Dex and Charisma because it knows that's what bards are good at. As you can see up here with our stats, and stats. We don't need to get into the numbers of all these things.
All right, so back up, if you would, because I really wanted this to be out the role play, and honestly,
I know I just wanted to get past this point.
Well, I'm sorry, Thomas. I'm not trying to be like you're running the show, and I got to step up. But what I'm saying is, I don't want anyone who's not familiar with 5e to think, 5e and D&D Beyond means you have to quick build and let the system run your stats. So if you could go back and show if you're rolling your 3d6 or 4d6 and 3 sets and your old school, how you create that to get your own stats in, and then let's go to the role play elements which 5e puts out through D&D Beyond.
Yeah, by the way, in the standard build, I think it's going to show you that information that you were missing about the races.
It will.
Right, exactly.
It will actually give you a lot more.
Exactly.
What I was going for with the quick build is if you are brand spanking new to D&D and you just want to see what a character sheet looks like, go to a quick build, bring your concept with you, and just boom, and look at it, and then start back from standard. Build it from the ground up. Because
I hate that idea. Sorry, Thomas.
Okay.
No, this is fun. Here. Go ahead, Thomas.
This is really weird because I completely agree with John there.
And you hate that, don't you, Robert?
It's an odd moment. I'm feeling a little outside my.
Why are you in my community, Robert? You really agree with me.
Hey, listen, I got to be the contrarian to someone. I guess it's Thomas's turn to.
I guess it's Thomas.
Put him in charge.
I surround myself with contrarians. They help you. All right, go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, because if you're a brand new player and you're looking at a character sheet, those numbers don't have meaning.
That is a good point.
Yet. I want them to look at the various races and the information and find something cool. I mean, 5e, because of the fact that you don't have to worry, with 5e, you don't have to worry about class, race restrictions. As long as it's a thing that your DM is allowing you to use, and most DMs, unless they're doing a specific campaign setting, with restrictions. Anything that they have access to goes. I want the player to look at a Goliath and say the Goliath, oh man, that looks cool. And then look at something that they might want the Goliath to be, and read the different descriptions and decide, okay, this is the kind of character I want to play. Especially for their first character, because just find an idea and run with it, and then at that point, it becomes a matter of the DM helping guide that along, understanding, not telling them how to play their character, but understanding what their character can do.
No, I'm gonna let you take, Thomas. You're gonna take this over in a second, so I got to step up for a moment. But this idea of oversimplification, people are not dumb. I don't care if they're Gen Z, millennials, Gen X, boomers, greatest generation, which I don't know if you can call them anymore, but people can learn things, and people like rolling dice for their stats. And there's something, this is visceral, this is part of the game. Having your 3d6, 4d6, drop whatever. I saw someone on that, it was a Chad thing on Instagram today, like someone posted like 46 drop ones and pick, that's new. But whatever you want, that is fun.
D20. And that's it. That's my stats. There's a D20 roll, and that's my stats.
Yeah. So I think there's don't take away the visceral element, because we're trying to so dumb down new player. I was brought in this game when I was 7 years old, and I still love D&D Beyond, and I want this tool, but don't make it where, if you can't just auto generate something, you don't want to play. That's not true.
I honestly, I hadn't tried the quick build in D&D Beyond before.
I'm not throwing shit at you, Thomas. I'm sorry. I'll shut up.
I really genuinely don't like it because I think it makes it so easy. But no, I totally agree with you guys. For me, rolling dice is so satisfying, and reading these details of like what your character will get to be.
That's part of the game, right?
Like at third level, I get divine health, which means I can't be diseased. Like, that sounds so cool. I'm so excited to get to that level. Let's start with this. And so, we'll make him a paladin barbarian, and we have to choose some proficiencies, which we can choose from, or a paladin Goliath. So like it's really neat because it does let you see these things, and like we'll do intimidation and religion. He'll be a big scary guy, but he'll be really religious. And then from here, you can do your base rolls. So you can do a generation method, point by, standard array, or rolled. And then you just type in what you would roll with your D6, or you could even have it roll those dice for you, rolls it on the screen.
Yeah, now we're
and
talking.
drops
That's
the
cool.
lowest one.
Yes.
And so if you don't have physical dice with you, or if this is something you're doing over Zoom with friends, it's something that you can just do, and I think it's very fun. And then you can obviously set which stat you want those numbers to be.
Yes.
And then you would move on to your general stuff. So this is the meat and potatoes of what I wanted to get into tonight, which is once you have the sheet, how do you play that character? And that is one thing that 5e has brought to the table in an almost gamified fashion that I think is really fun, in my opinion, but not overly like gamey, if that makes sense. And it's something I wanted to talk about in the actual book itself, and we'll start there. If anyone else had any thoughts about stuff, go for it.
No, the chat's blowing up. Robert, anything you see in the chat you want to talk about other than the Steve's,
I'm going to
wise,
more Steve's comments.
so wise, so well reasoned, and he pretty much mic dropped on that. Go ahead, Robert.
I like in terms of the tools that they give you for the backgrounds and such. I honestly, while I think it's kind of cool that you can automatically add the stuff and they give you the ability to add it to your character sheet, I like the description in the player's handbook and the other books more than I like the mechanics of adding it to your sheet, only because of the fact that it still ends up becoming more of an archetype necessarily than specifically what the player wants. And I prefer to have more. I mean, granted, I'm an experienced player, but I'd like to also encourage my players to have more control than that. And even as experienced, there's sometimes when I look at it, if I'm creating a one shot, yeah, sure, I'll just click this. All right, this seems interesting.
Right.
I can work with this. But as a new player, for new players, I want them to let me know what it is you want to do and what kind of character do you want to be.
No, exactly. No, Robert, that's
a way to make it work.
No, Robert, that's so good. Thank you. You actually said something smart tonight. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, lawful evil, anti-paladin.
No,
John, you can't do that while I'm hosting. What are you doing?
sorry, but no. Like, was it like ultimately work with your players? For example, perhaps I don't allow Goliaths in my campaign or Warforged, but then I have half ogres. And if my player wants to have something similar to that, I can work with. So, like, work with your players to create the PCs that they're excited about and that they love, and that's the essence of D&D. Don't go over the top and make things which are Monty Hall, which we've talked about before, or I want to play Tiamat as my first level character. No, I want a Tarrasque. No,
you have to let me.
Yeah,
but listen, if your brand new player knows what a Tarrasque is.
I still don't let you do it.
I'm beginning to think that they're the worst pool shark in the world.
Yeah, I had a player at one point who was brand new to D&D, and I showed him Volo's Guide to Monsters as one of the books, and he was like, "I want to play that guy," and he pointed at Volo, the giant, and I was like, "No, but you could play a Rune Knight fighter, which lets you partially get big like a couple times per day." And he was like, "No, I want to play that." And he was very insistent on being a giant. I was like, "All right, we can make you a Goliath, and then you can do that." "No, I want to be that." "All right, well, we'll see what we could do." But sometimes you have to, we'll get into that later. But it is funny. The characters, people come up with lots of fun ideas, and it's our job as DMs to rein those ideas.
Yeah, you don't want to feel like you're the grognard. "Not on my lawn. You cannot do that." Right? But just like put them in sort of because ultimately it's all about fun for the players. Why do I not have my players starting out at 27th level fighting Tiamat? Because where do you go from there?
Yep.
I do want to touch on something I saw in chat. Eversalt mentioned regarding the general consensus about trusting players not to cheat on their stat rolls.
Oh, yes, I was looking for that, Robert. Thank you. Please come to that.
So here, my thought on that is, honestly, if I've got to worry about them cheating on stat rolls, first of all, then I have my concerns as for how else are they planning on cheating. But really, honestly, it's something that you can have the greatest stat rolls in the world, not necessarily think to necessarily help you in the game, especially considering you're playing a cooperative game.
Yep.
And it will become, if it's that important to you, it's going to become, well, let's put it may become a problem. The problem will become evident in other ways.
Yes.
But here's the other problem is playing in first edition. There were some character classes that, in order to qualify to play a character, you had to have some ridiculous stat rolls.
Yeah, which is good, right?
Yeah, so
a paladin had to have 17 charisma. A paladin had a 17 charisma in 1E to be a paladin.
Among other things.
Is that yeah? Right. I'm just picking the highest stat. Is that bad?
No. I mean, it's just
you can say yes, Robert. I love when you fight with me. So please don't yes, you can say, John, that sucks. It's okay.
I hate it because 17 is way too high. But one thing that 5e does, I'm not sure if older editions do this, is multi-classing has stat requirements, and so your base class, you could be whatever. But multi-classing after that.
I'd ask Jay to back me up on this, but I'm pretty sure that in the older edition, you had to meet whatever stat requirements of.
That's right. No, that is true.
Yes.
We don't need Jay to confirm. I can confirm. That is
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm older than Jay.
I didn't do a lot of multi-class.
No, I lied. Jay's a little bit older than me. We're close though.
So back to my point. Rein it in, boys. When you are done with your general idea for your character, now it is time to breathe life into them, give them more details, write a backstory. It might not be something that you have to spend 11 pages on, cough cough Josh, but you should have some idea of where they came from and why they're where they're at now. Like, they're not going to be fresh from the womb killing goblins. They're going to have some sort of story behind them, and that is where 5e's backgrounds system, I think, brings some interesting stuff into. So not only does, we talk about name, sex, height, and weight, and they even give like a random height and weight chart, which I think is just kind of fun. If you want to random generate some of your physical stats, they give you some baseline stuff to kind of help you out. Like halflings start at 2'7", which is crazy, but they're halflings, so that makes sense. Other physical traits, eyes, hair, skin, do they have tattoos, a scar? Maybe add something random, and then later down the line, write it into the backstory. I find that to be something really fun. Like Alcott has 2 bright white streaks of hair on the edge of his face. Here is my Alcott model, because this is something I was going to talk about too. I find creating models helps me when I'm making a character, just because I like a visual reference for my
Where's
character.
the scar?
Not the scar, the streaks of white hair.
No, I'm asking where the scar is, though. He took that slashed the...
I can't do that on here, John. Anyways, so do that, and then we won't get into alignment because the 2 people in this chat are... we won't talk about alignment.
No, you can talk about... Just don't talk about alignment with paladins or druids, please. That's...
But then we get into these things that 5e defines as personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. And personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws are these 4 ideas that Wizards of the Coast came up with to kind of help you create a more rounded character. And they do that through backgrounds. And you can also just come up with them on your own. They even give you some ideas for inspiration on these, but we can just look at some of these backgrounds. So the first background in 5e is the Acolyte. You've spent your life in the service of a temple to a specific god or pantheon of gods, and act as an intermediary between the realm of the holy and the mortal world, performing sacred rites and offering sacrifices in order to conduct worshippers into the presence of the divine. So the next line after that is totally cool. You are not necessarily a cleric. You can be an acolyte and a wizard. Like you could be an acolyte of Mystra. You could be, you go to the temple where wizards go to pray to the goddess of magic, but you are not necessarily a cleric. This is, go on, Robert.
No, the one issue I have, the only issue I have with this whole idea here is the fact that they actually have it as something to do random die roll.
Okay, but this is also something that they explicitly mention in it earlier is you do not have to random die roll this. Please don't, is actually what they say. But if you want, you can.
Wait, do they say please don't, or do they say if you don't want to pick one, go ahead and do this? Please don't.
You might want to tweak some of the features of the background so it better fits your character or the campaign setting.
Yeah,
Customize the background. You can replace any one feature with another feature. Choose 2 skills.
Yeah, so that's what I liked about 5e. It's if you want to roll, again, back to Thomas's earlier point, a total noob doesn't know what to do. They can roll, maybe takes the pressure off them. That might be for their first or second character. But if they want to look at the list, they can pick instead of roll, right?
So it says you can pick characteristics, roll dice to determine them randomly, or use the suggestions as inspiration for characteristics of your own creation.
I mean, honestly, I would prefer that if they did not have any idea what they wanted to choose, leave that and figure it out later when they get an idea of how their character plays.
I am totally within that idea as well of some of these things you should come up with at the table. Now, yes, you can have 6 personality traits. You can have 12 flaws. Like, it doesn't matter how many you pick. But I do think that use this as inspiration for maybe an idea for how you want to play your character at the table.
Yeah, you could develop it, but you should still have something to start with, right? So this gives someone a starting point. If they want to develop a flaw, I'm a drug addict. Yeah, I don't have to push that initially, but if I want to play that later in the game, that's fine.
So as an acolyte, one of the examples they give is I judge others harshly and myself even more severely, maybe due to their god being that way. Or I'm suspicious of strangers and expect the worst of them. So this is something you can bring to the table and very easily role play out as whenever anyone comes up to the party, you are the one who suggests caution first. You grab your pockets because you don't want to get pickpocketed. You have physical manifestations of what your character is doing in the game, and that allows you to begin building what that means either from your backstory or whatever. And it can be the other way around. You wrote it in your backstory and then you develop flaws as you go. But these are really jump-starty ways for you to kind of come up with a background on your own. Especially I like ideals. Some of these ideals, they even tie to certain alignments, such as charity. I always try to help those in need, no matter what the cost. Tends to be a good aligned character. Or change. We must help and bring about the changes. The gods are constantly working in the world. Chaotic, and that's not necessarily something you also have to follow. But these are good inspirations for you to use.
Now, how much of this
about a unique character?
How much of this is available in Beyond or automated in Beyond?
Backgrounds in Beyond are available. There are only a limited number of them: Acolyte, Criminal, Folk Hero, Haunted One, Noble, Sage, and Soldier. But they, as you pick them, you go through and do your stuff.
That depends on how many of the books you have unlocked.
Yes, but I'm talking. I don't have anything unlocked in the game.
Okay.
So this is what any random person going into D&D Beyond would have.
Okay, all right, that's fair enough. Fair. I honestly wasn't sure, because when you said that, I realized that they as you get more of these source books, because there's a whole lot of them.
Actually, I think Haunted One is one that I have selected from a Magic the Gathering thing, but that's free content that you can either turn on and off when you're making your character.
There's also the concern about this, though, and here's where it becomes an issue. Can become an issue. Is you've got a brand new player creating a brand new character. If you're limited to those first 8 or whatever it was things, well, now you've had them choose a species or a race, however you decide to define it, a character class, and suddenly, if your DM has all the books and all those options, suddenly you have them staring at this huge list.
Yes.
And there's also the possibility of just it overwhelming your brand new player.
I agree with that sentiment, and this is why I wholeheartedly believe a session 0 for new players is required, because I can sit down at the table and ask them, all right, why are they where they're at now? What were they doing before this? What kind of job did they have before they became an adventurer? Because obviously they weren't always doing
And
this.
you have questions like that way back in the original 1E Player's Handbook and 1E DM's Guide. These are common things you want to push. So session 0 can be as simple as you sitting down with your new player and walking through their character with them. So don't get confused. If you're watching tonight, you're like, what is a session 0? It's just DM and player talking through their character or through the characters to help them set up the campaign in a way that when they start the first sort of, okay, dice are rolled, danger is happening, that they're prepped for it.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, one thing I would suggest with that is provide those questions to the players before session 0, because you ask them at session 0, especially if you have more than one brand new player, you're going to get a lot of blank stares.
But I think that as a DM, you have maybe not a lot of experience, but you've at least read part of one of the books. And as a DM, you at least have some sort of a story ready. Let them know what that looks like and help them to come up with something that maybe integrates well with your story. And if that changes later down the road, we can retcon some stuff. I'm a DM who's totally fine with retconning things for new players because,
All right.
That's just what I like to do.
I need to step upstairs for a moment, but for both you powder puffs, I need to correct Robert because I love doing this. If I ask a question of a player on their backstory and they stare at me blankly, like they have no idea what I'm talking about, I kick them off my table. Just kidding. All right.
Chris just said he blank stared all the time. Anyways, now that John's gone, we can have real boy talk. No, I'm just kidding.
The children have left the room.
So that was a really witchy laugh. I'm very sorry, everyone in the chat. But one thing that instead of thinking about it like I need a personality trait, I need an ideal, I need a bond, I need a flaw, is I need something that motivates my character, an ambition, something that grasps their soul, that makes them want to go out and do the adventuring that they're doing. Mm-hmm. If that's because they're an acolyte, that's maybe because their god has told them to do so. In the case of Alcott, his motivating factor was to prove I'm not weak. Or my character Thoradin was to find something to hit. Very simple motivations that you should look at as moldable clay. A character's motivation unless they're very strong in their ideals, should change over time and grow as they learn and learn about the world and see things. And in my opinion, at least, Robert, would you like to speak to that?
No, it's true. Especially, and it's one of those things where that there needs to be that line of communication between the DM and their players about the character's motivations over time. Because I'll be honest, I was playing in a campaign and my character, there came a point where I realized that I no longer knew what my character's motivation for being here was. Mostly because of the fact that I wasn't getting anything from the DM in terms of why was this important, other than me playing the character that I am, it didn't make a lot of sense as to why I would care about any of this. There was, it was a story arc that had importance possibly to the other characters, but we weren't playing a really tight-knit group. It was kind of, the group dynamic was specifically that we were kind of thrown together for convenience. And I was like, I don't know why my character, and I even in game, my character was kind of rebelling a bit because this was not where his personal motivations were. And it was getting very, just like, there was nothing happening with regards to his own personal arc, and actually almost completely diametrically opposed to the stuff that he needed to be doing for reasons that weren't clear to him, and about things he didn't care about. And
yes,
it became a problem to the point where I just didn't know what to do. And I spoke to him. I was like, I don't know what to do anymore.
Which is good. Have conversations like that with your DM. Those of you who have seen Rune Lord's most recent session know that Chandler's character, Markov, was not entirely excited about going and fighting a Kraken because he's a monster hunter and he knew what that would mean. His god explicitly told him not to do that. And yet, because it's still a game, Chandler found reasons within his character's motivation to go and do so anyways, which I think shows good on a player. But John also took that and ran with it and made it a thing for the character to prove, like, go and protect them, just know that this is not smart. And Markov ran with that, and still, in the heat of this moment that he did not want to be in, that his character knew would be the death of him, still found a moment to bring out those motivations that his character has and have this really beautiful moment in roleplay in the midst of a combat. And that's one thing that I think having solid motivations behind a character really allows you to do. Bend those motivations, twist them, come up with ways that they fit and serve the story. Because at the end of the day, we are still here to tell a story and play a game with each other. So like if Markov just left, that would have been pretty boring. Chandler would have just kind of gotten up and left the table and but
yeah, unfortunately mine did not have a happy ending. It kind of, what ended up basically being the result was, it was kind of, well, what we're doing is just because it's the next thing, which just didn't work. And I got to the point, it's like I'm not, I'm just not really here. I'm playing this, and it's, I don't have anywhere to go with my character.
And honestly, if that does happen, and I know that we're kind of getting into the later stages of character, if that ends up happening, perhaps it does make sense to retire the PC into another environment, have them go and do something else, and maybe build something new and unique. I mean, if that's something that you want to do, unless you're extremely attached to that character, you should talk with your DM about keeping them in some way, because it is important at the end of the day for you to enjoy the gameplay as much as the other players and the DM. We're all here to tell a story together. So bring up your concerns to your DM personally. Don't feel afraid to do that as a player.
We're all
especially
here to kill the PCs. That's all we're here for.
Stop saying PCs.
He said PCs. No, PCs.
No.
Keep saying PCs.
No, just Thomas. Really? You're just so used to correcting me. You don't even listen to what I'm saying now.
So one thing I mentioned earlier is motivations can change, and in my opinion, it's good that they do. Alcott's motivation, in my opinion, has changed from to prove I'm not weak to show I am strong, because and there's a minor difference between those two, but it has extremely changed the way that I have played Alcott on the board and outside of combat. He's gone from this guy who has a big sword on his back that his brother wielded, who's way bigger than him, that he knew he couldn't hold, to a guy who knows who he is and has a motivating factor of my family's dying and to save them. And that's something that shows, I've got a good DM. He gave Alcott a push off a cliff and said, here, deal with it. And he also, John is also a DM, and he has given us tools to solve those problems rather than just letting us sink down deep into the ocean, which we also are trying desperately hard to do. But allow your character to change, allow your character to grow. And honestly, from the start, you should come in with the idea that is something that will happen, because you don't just go out and start ruthlessly killing things and it doesn't change you. And I'm not saying you have to ruthlessly kill things. It's maybe not where your campaign goes, but the world changes you, and you should be prepared for that when you're writing your character. Thoughts? John?
Looking at the chat for things. DM Dingbat, yeah, I completely agree with you that D&D Beyond and 5e has made it extremely easy to get started. The other thing, actually, it does bring up an interesting question for you, Thomas. For new players, as a DM, do you find it easier to have them start with their own character, or get them involved in a one-shot first with the pre-gen so they can get a feel for the game before they go and build their first character?
Oh, good question.
This is a very good question. And I have only ever had people make characters because of what you just said. 5e has made it very easy to do. Mm-hmm. If they make a character and we do our first session, which I always make the first session feel like a one-shot. I have some combat. I have some minor role play that I do basically after a little bit of combat, because after you do combat, I feel you're more in that mood to role play and do the thing. And I usually have them do some sort of a puzzle-y, dungeon-y thing. It's just a simple little fetch quest. Go get this thing. It's in this spot. Bring it back. That's usually what I tend to do. There's actually one that Matthew Colville does. Oh, what's it called? It's a specific, the Tomb of the something. Someone in chat probably knows what I'm talking about. But it's a really simple little dungeon that has a couple of puzzles in it and a combat within it. And then you leave. You bring the thing back.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, I think Lost Minds of Fandaliever.
The Delian Tomb.
Yeah, the Delian Tomb is in the chat.
Eversalt said it.
Yeah. All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Thomas. I didn't mean to talk on my own stream. Go ahead. No, I think 5e, Lost Minds of Fandaliever, is one of the best sort of entrant modules into any edition. It's a great system. But coming back to this idea of, well, what do you do with a new player? I have introduced many new players. More new. Red Hulk, you're becoming you agree with me. You're my favorite
Stop
new chat.
agreeing with John. It's okay to disagree. You don't have to.
No, it's okay to disagree. He only agrees because he's right. All right, so I've all my kids, they were 9, 6, 5. Now 4. I've introduced them at early ages. I still let them roll stats. They like. Even my 5, 6-year-old daughter, some dice and rolling, and I explained to her what strength is versus dexterity. This builds, vocabulary and knowledge. And what's constitution, Dad? What's strength?
How do you describe those, John? How do you describe the stats?
Okay, yeah. Want me to go through that?
I would love to, because I have a very specific method that I use.
No, then you go ahead and go through your specific method, and I'll tell you what.
No. All right. Tell me.
No, strength is your obvious physical haleness, how much you can lift, the amount of power you have in a punch, or the sword, or the lifting of a barrel, or the breaking of bars, or bending of bars, which were actually 1E sets of your strength. So bend bars was literally part of your strength in 1E. Lift gates was part of your strength in 1E.
Yeah, well, that's because everything in 1E was a dungeon, so that makes sense.
I feel dismissed.
I don't.
No. I'm not dismissing.
I just
find it funny that they specifically mentioned bending bars and lifting gates.
Yeah,
that's very dungeony.
Considering the most well-known mod, probably the the most famous or most
Oh,
maybe the most played is Hamlet, which yes, there's a dungeon in it, but you don't get to the dungeon for quite a while.
All right, I don't know about that one, but I.
All right, so let me wrest the reins back from you. So Chris Carson, not any of my kids. He a fantastic guy. Used to live here. Now he's off in the eastern lands, Virginia, somewhere in those hinter areas. But I helped him learn the game. And I explained all these stats. So back to strength. Strength is your physical haleness, your ability to lift, swing heavy things, push up. Strength, right?
Yeah.
Intelligence. So in the old system was SIW, right? Strength, intelligence, wisdom, dex, con, charisma. That was the... Yeah, right. And so
I was going to say that's how you can tell you're an old school player.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I'm purposefully doing this. I know. I think there's some wisdom to switching that up to going like your physical stats, strength, dex, con up top, intelligence, wisdom. I'm not against that, but I'm saying
get to your point, John.
All right, back to my point. Intelligence, raw intellectual capacity. IQ would be the term we would use. Memory, recall, ability, facility with spatial reasoning and memorization and intuition, logic, this ability to absorb raw intellectual facts. That's your intelligence. Wisdom, that's like this sage ability to know good and evil, and your sense of knowledge of nature and right and wrong that go beyond this simple mental capacity or facility for knowledge and learning to something deeper in you, a wisdom, a capacity to intuit. Your intuition is connected to your wisdom. Then you go to your constitution or dexterity. Let's start with dexterity. Dexterity is your nimbleness, your facility with things, your ability to be stealthy and light and cross a beam quickly, and your balance and the nimbleness of your fingers. These are all your things which are associated with dexterity. Constitution, that is your haleness to receive blows, to resist poisons. You take that powerful sword thrust, but you are heavy of constitution, separate from strength. Heavy of constitution, you can perhaps be more resistant to that blow, have more capacity to resist the amount of blood that you're draining out, or to resist poisons, which is why dwarves get bonuses to con, and they get additional resistance to poison because they are so heavy on con. And then charisma. Charisma is your natural sort of ability to influence. You can command a room. Charisma is separate from comeliness, which is why I still do comeliness. There are people which are not what you would call facially or bodily attractive, but can still walk into a room and command that room. That is your charisma. It is your sense of personal force, your ability to command in presence. And then comeliness becomes the additional stat, seventh stat, which is not used in the newer systems, which is your actual sort of what you look like, your face, your body, your external stuff. Charisma and comeliness as separate things. That's how I explain stats.
I'm going to say one of the things I love about Castles and Crusades is there is no comeliness, because I really hate that stat.
Well, there is no comeliness in anything except 1E, Robert, and I love that stat.
Well, and comeliness didn't happen until until Unearthed Arcana.
No, it was in Dragon Mags before Unearthed Arcana. Unearthed Arcana was something which was an amalgamation of Dragon Mags. Right?
Not everybody had all the Dragon Mags, John.
I didn't say that. I just said it didn't come. Sorry, go ahead.
But it became an official stat.
John is right again.
As of Unearthed Arcana, and when they started deciding that certain characters had to, it just, oh God.
Well, that's what, you brought up a great point, Robert, because that was part of fun of the early ages of D&D, because you didn't have to wait for the 4E rulebook or the 5E rulebook. You had magazines published by Gygax and Arneson, and these people were involved, the original creators, and they had these iterative sort of like, they were revs, like, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and if you wanted to, as a, 1.5E, exactly, Prometheus, you got it. I'm D&D fly. So I'll stop. Sorry, go ahead.
So, one thing I did like about what you said, John, charisma, force of presence in a room.
Only one thing I like.
Charisma, a charisma saving throw is how you save against banishment, which it's because it's your force of presence to stay in your current position, which I kind of like. But the way I describe all of the stats in D&D to new players is with a tomato. And I know that that's way too simple for you. But it's with a tomato. Strength is how far you can throw a tomato. Dexterity is the ability to dodge that tomato.
Yeah, that's fair.
Constitution is the ability to eat a rotten tomato and not throw it up. Intelligence is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. And charisma is the ability to sell a tomato-based fruit salad. And that is how I describe the stats, because that pretty easily gives you a physical example of what all the stats are like, how they work, and what they do.
As Mike said, you've just given us Veggie Tales. We are the pirates who don't do anything. But
I don't like tomatoes. Can we use apples? No, because it defeats the purpose of the intelligence point, Tim.
All right, so we got to get ready to raid Jay. And I really wanted to show more of D&D Beyond. So, Thomas, can we conclude with, and we'll come back. You've done a great job. My interruption should not be an indication of my displeasure with the fantastic job that you and, even Robert.
It comes off that way, but
I know. Well, it's mainly because I'm mad at Robert always.
Why wouldn't you be though?
Yeah, that's why I call it Vane Robert's Chains, a place to die. I'm teasing Robert.
I knew it. That whole subconscious inspiration thing.
It could have been, Robert. No, I love you, man. Come on. All right, go ahead.
So D&D Beyond it's not letting me view the character sheet yet because we haven't done all the stats. But starting from the get-go, you choose your race. We looked at Goliath, but it gives you all that stuff that you can look at. Like Half-Orc has Dark Vision and Menacing, which gives the Intimidation skill. And if you don't know what that means, later on the character sheet you will. Or you can ask your DM, what's Intimidation? What are skills? And you move on and you do these things, and you can.
By the way, I'd like to point something out here. Beyond the character creation portion of it and the actual mechanics of creating the character, one of the beauties of D&D Beyond is the fact that the DM can, assuming that they still have or don't have too many already happening, they can share their content. Anything that they own with the players in that thing. So the players can go and look at the books. They're not sitting there just basically whatever the character creation tells them. They can go into the player's handbook and see what are these things and get a better understanding. Go into Tasha's or Xanathar's or whatever, and look at what it's telling them and the options, and not have to just basically sit at something that's giving them numbers and stuff and figuring out what is that enough information for them.
All right, so I'm going to let Thomas, thank you, Robert, that was great. So I'm going to let Thomas conclude the session tonight. But Thomas, I want to ask you a question. It was a great talk I had today with Jay. Tasha was mentioned by Robert.
Mm-hmm.
What is the origin of Tasha?
I don't know. It's just like, don't even ask.
All right.
I knew you were gonna, and I don't even she's a witch. That's all I know.
All right. So I encourage all of my viewers, as Jay did on his channel last weekend, figure out where Tasha came from. And I love all the 5e stuff, but it's so much more fun. It's not contradictory. It's more fun when you know where it came from. When I talk about Dragon magazines, I've got these, 40, 60, 70 mags on my shelf. The 1.1, 1.11, 1.12, 1.123. These iterations were how the game was created. And yes, Mike, you're right. Exactly. All right, Thomas, bring us home.
So we talked about a good number of things on today's stream. The main things that I want you to take away from the stream today is start your character creation with some basic inspiration or some basis of character creation. If it's in Robert's case, it's only his own personal life and doing the inverse of what he is as a person. And that's totally fine. It could be movies. It could be a cool weapon idea you had. It could even be an epic moment that you want to live out in the game. Like for me, I had an idea for a character I'm creating called Rinzit, where on one hit per turn, he can deal 8d6 plus 3d8 damage on a single ranged weapon attack because multi-classing is really good. And I want to try it out because I think it'd be really fun. There's also subreddits that are really good, like r/3d6 or writing prompts that can give you inspiration for things. After you've done that, do something, unless you're doing a session 0 with your DM, do something to better solidify that idea within your head for you. Make a character sheet. I make a 20th level character sheet. You can make a mini using something like Hero Forge, or even Eldritch Foundry has a tool that they have. I don't really use it. Some people prefer it. I've never used it.
I love that. So Eldritch, like real quick, because we got to raid Jay, but Eldritch Foundry, I've never been on, but they're also plugged into Tailspire. Hero Forge is the one I know. Tell me about the difference between those two tools.
I don't really know. I know that Eldritch Foundry had a lot less options for a while there, but I know that they're getting better and better. But I honestly don't know enough about Eldritch Foundry to be able to speak to that. But
yeah,
Hero
so
Forge,
Orenwar Hunter, thank you. So, like, do you know more about, like, anyone in the chat, like Hero Forge, Eldritch Foundry, differences, details are the difference?
While people in the chat talk about that, I will kind of continue on the things to take away from the stream.
Please do.
And then once you have more of a solid idea of what your character is going to be like, breathe life into them with details. Give them scars, tattoos, give them a motivation. I think is something that's extremely important to do, because you need to give your DM something to work with and yourself something to work with when you're at the table. Motivation is a driving force behind your character's actions and can help you define what they do. And then, try and use 5e, the ideals, bonds, personality traits, flaws. Look over backgrounds if you're doing a different edition of D&D, just to give you some idea of what you're working with, an idea of what your character might be like.
Yeah.
Give them a flaw of some sort. Flaws, I think, in my opinion, flaws are the most important thing to give your character, because it gives them something unique that you can do at the table.
I think that's Thomas, I love that last point. Flaws are incredibly important, because while we all want to play heroes, no one wants to be Superman that just sort of overcomes the world. You have no villain that can overcome you. There's no such thing as kryptonite in your world. You want to have a flaw. Superman has kryptonites, right? So every character, even that first level character, should have something which is his draw, his pull back. That makes the role play fun. I
totally agree. And when you're creating your character, when you're done with this breathing life into them, start, if you've already created the backstory, that's cool. But when you're creating your backstory, don't write a novel. Write a short story with holes in it. Create this concept of the character's background and then hand it to your DM and say, here's a present. As a DM, I really, truly enjoy when a person comes up with a character that has holes in their background that I can fill with my world.
All right. So let me agree and contradict. I've never had a player give me a novel, but if I ever did, I would be overjoyed. And that novel could still have holes. So don't think
totally agree.
Yeah. So like I'm teasing you, Thomas. Like, I get, like, you could have a 2-3 paragraph backstory, but have holes, like places for flaws or DM to fill in. If you write a book, I've written a book. I've got a 300 and whatever page book called Kin War, and there are still holes in that. So that's good to give your DM that latitude to really build in the game, and all my players have done that, which I totally respect. Now, yeah. Robert has been quiet for quite some time, and I want to give him a chance to speak before we close out tonight, because he looks like he's ready.
I mostly just following along with the chat and seeing if there was anything that needed to be touched on, because chat's been rolling by.
Hawk Moon.
I think for me, the most important when I'm having a new player to my table, whether it's a brand new player or just a player who's playing a different rule set or a brand new player, basically to me, I don't ever want the player to feel intimidated by the choices.
Yes.
It's if they are not 100% certain, especially if I'm doing a specific type of campaign, they're not entirely sure how they want to fit. It's figure out what we can for now, and we can continue to work on it, because especially with the first couple of adventures, if I'm starting a first level campaign, the first set of adventures are normally going to be, as you mentioned, Thomas, the really quick quests, maybe going to the next town, doing a couple simple things, let them get a feel for my style, how that works, because sometimes how you interact with your DM is also going to help define your character a bit. Because it brings out your comfort level with what you want to do. How what does the game offer that you may want to take advantage of, and they may not have all those ideas at first, especially if it's the first time ever playing at all.
No. So, Robert, I love that. And as you were speaking, I really want you to. We're going to raid Jay in a moment. So if you're here with us, please don't bounce. We'll raid Jay, and he loves having people kind of come in mass. So don't feel like we're not going to support Jay. We always do. We love Lord Gazumba. But Friday Night Crusades, you have done such a great job with that, Robert. And part of that is what you exactly just said. So you're part of the Blue Box community, but you're also an adjunct. You got your own sort of set of rules that you bring in, and it's sort of what we want in this community to grow it. What have you done to really endear people to Friday Night Crusades with their character creation, their role play, with this whole chat channel in our Discord? They love it. Talk to us about that, please.
So, with Friday Night Crusades, it's really interesting because. We talk about campaigns that don't quite go as planned. Oh no, this was. I mean, this was not from conception to what actually happened. Two completely different things.
Does that ever happen?
I mean, it was one of those things where the players that I started off with were, for the most part, are not the players that I have now, and it keeps growing, and they keep coming back, which is absolutely wonderful. We've got a pretty standard group, and more are always welcome. But I'm going to let them run with it. We've had some silly inside jokes that have lasted for a month and a half, 2 months now, where it's the half in our game, canonically speaking, half orcs love eating snake.
That's awesome. Those esoteric moments. That's awesome, Robert. I love that. That's D&D. Yes.
And it all happened in a session where it kind of ended. They found a snake, and one of the half orcs said, well, we killed the snake, which nearly killed one of the other characters. I was like, well, how are we going to cook it? And it became a thing where
hey, Justin,
every time they go to a tavern, they ask, do they serve snake? I mean, I there's a romance going on. I was not expecting, but okay, everybody. I mean, I've got a bunch of players who just basically just running with, and one of the things I love, and I've talked about this with Cats and Crusades, is the rule set does not get in the way of the game.
God, yes, exactly.
Of any of the D&D, and I've played, with the exception of 3.5, 3 and 3.5, which I just wasn't that I just missed it because of timing. I've played them all.
You missed the best.
I've never seen a version that the rules get out of the way as they do in Castle Crusades, even more than 5e. Castle Crusades, Siege Engine, just get out of the way. Players, what do you want to do? I'm there for it. We'll figure it out, and they have. To their credit, they've run with it like crazy.
I love that. So Thomas, you got some. I'm gonna let you close because you got a cool map up here and some goblin lookouts. But before we close tonight, I want to say Robert is exactly on point. It hurts me to say that, but as much as I love this guy, we are actually
agreed with each other twice. What's going on?
I don't know.
Implode?
Can you feel the love
singing,
tonight? I'm sorry, Robert. You're the karaoke guy. Go ahead. Can you feel love tonight? Sing it.
Can you feel the love tonight?
You win. You beat me. Well done. All right. So, point being, you want your characters and your players to feel like they are enjoying the game, growing, and really, no, we're frenemies. Yeah, that's right, Mike. So, that is exactly what a DM should do. Grow the game. Systems should disappear. This is why I have DM'd 5e, 1e, 3.5, 2e. I've not DM'd 4E, and I'm not trying to be funny, just because 4E feels very like a tactical interim system. So, but like, I love 5E, I love 1E, I love 2E. 3.5 is my center, because it's pretty close to center, I think. But whatever it is, no, Eversalt, you agree with Robert? Okay, ban. Where's my mods? ban. I don't know what you're agreeing with, but you gotta ban him. Whatever that was. But I think just grow the game, and I like making the rules dissolve in the background of the story. And I challenge anyone to say, you can see a Blue Box stream that I'm DMing where the rules don't dissolve to the background and become just sort of the undergirding. You still want them, because if without rules, it's, oh, I leap up into the clouds and I call the gods down upon them, and then I cast my lightning bolts and I ref them from. No, you can't have this sort of, you have to have rules. You have to have what was said earlier, the Hobbit rescuing the cabbage patch and pulling the, like, grow and feel like you're having this sense of ascendancy, but it should not be something that is ever blocking the role play and people feeling like, I'm having fun and telling stories. That is what the game is about. Thomas, you have the last word.
So, out of anything you could take away from this stream, it should be that TTRPGs are new player friendly and old player friendly, and you should not feel afraid getting into them, whether you played them 30 years ago or never at all. Find a group that works for you, have your session 0, and just experiment. Do something fun and unique. Take inspiration from whatever you want. Don't feel afraid to do that, and just have fun at the table. And for DMs, look for inspiration in other things too. We mentioned doing a little level 1 one-shot up on the screen. I have Matt Colville's Delian Tomb, which I find to be a very nice little dungeon thing to let new players get a feel for what the game might be like, and just try it out. Experiment. If you don't like it, maybe you need to try a different system. There's lots of different systems out there, and I promise there's so much fun you can have sitting at a table telling a story with your friends.
Thomas, this is perfect. Like with I brought my now 10-year-old daughter into the game on her own. I did a one-shot with her about 4 months ago, and it was a simple forest, a house, goblins coming to the house, and it was a blast for her. I killed her character. No, that's not true. But she enjoyed the combat. It was so simple, very much like this map. Don't overcomplicate introducing new players. They will love something as simple as this.
And I love that you told me I'd get the last word and then you stole it.
No, you still have the last word. That was my penultimate word. You have the ultimate, I have the penultimate. So you're still on, Thomas.
Well, John, why don't you square off that raid for Jay, and we will ask our fun question.
No. I want one more.
No.
No. I'm not good. Stop. I want one more poignant comment from you, Thomas. I want you to say.
I can't have more poignant comments, John.
You can. I believe in you. Say one more thing, which will leave us all wrapped with attention and reveling in your wisdom. And I'm not saying that sarcastically. I know you have this in you, Thomas.
Thomas, there's something that you can bring up. I know there's something you can bring up.
I know there is, too. I've seen it. Speech, Mikey B.
There's a question to be asked.
I know there's a question to be asked, but John wants to ask that question.
So I'll let you ask that question.
And it's really stressing me out.
Remember, John is right.
Listen, folks, if you don't know where to start, go to Castles and Crusades, or find some people in the Blue Box community to start a Roll20 game with. There's an entire Discord full of people that love this game.
All right, Thomas, let me
find some folks to play it.
I love that. So let me open this up. Are you
going to give me the last word or not, John?
I am. I'm asking a question. I'm going to give you the last word. Tell me one thing you think I could do better as a DM.
Not because you play so much, man. What the heck?
No. Okay, that's out. Stop. No, something real. Stop that.
No, I think Vampwick says kill more players. You do an intensely good job at bringing in random bits from backstory.
No, stop. What could I do better? Yes.
But I think the hints you drop are sometimes
Too obscure?
Because we might, there was a moment where we were in the drowning puzzle with Ira where it just was not clear what we were supposed to do, or there were some magic items that we might have missed. And I think for me as a DM, I also give, there's an understanding of there's difference between player and character. And the player might not be quite grasping what I'm saying, but the character has different knowledge than the player does. There's actually a system called GURPS that makes a rule for that called common sense. If you take that advantage, then you roll plus IQ, and your DM has to tell you what a better choice would be to do in the moment is.
I know GURPS. I hate that rule. Sorry, good, Robert.
That's what for me. That's kind of where I would, for 5e, I would use perception or insight or
investigation or something similar. Yes,
where I'm not necessarily telling them straight out. I'm giving them very strong indications of where they should be looking.
Yes.
Something that occurs to them, because it's still something that's in their mind. I'm not going to say, well, no, you should be pulling that lamp down because that's going to open the secret door.
Right.
There's something that the rogue or somebody with superior eyesight notices. I do this all the time on Friday nights where everything is an attribute check, and I'll constantly have them at certain times, if they're not sure what's next, I'll have an attribute check and let them know. It's like, well, this is. And it's never binary. I don't believe a lot. I try to avoid in binary checks as much as possible.
Right.
There's what their character should know, and then depending on pass or fail, the extent to which I either take away from or add to that knowledge that they should have.
Yeah. That's great, Robert. I love that. That's awesome. But I promised Thomas the last word. So, Thomas, your last word would be...
Help.
Whatever you would like to be.
How about this? Everybody, we will survive on Sunday. The Kraken will not get to us, and it's going to happen, and it'll all be okay, and no one's going to die. That's the last word, and you heard it here. Bye, everyone.
Lies, all lies. Let's start the raid. Oh, wait. We didn't do it. You have a question, Thomas.
We do have a question.
Go ahead. No, Robert first, then
the question comes in 3 parts. So, Robert, start us with the first bit of the question, and then John, take it, and I will ask the last.
If you are enjoying the content that you are watching, but you're not yet following, go ahead.
If you're following, and for some reason you've not subbed, even though an Amazon Prime member, which is probably many of you, can sub for free. Otherwise, it's
re-up it every month.
$4.99. Yeah, you got to re-up it but it's $4.99 a month, and that sub we only get $2.50-$3 of it here at Blue Box, and oh my goodness, you can bet it will take me 10 years to recover what I've invested in this. And you've not subbed, Thomas?
Or if you're a sub and you've allowed your subscription, such as a Amazon Prime member, to expire.
Or a gift sub from another channel.
Without re-upping your subscription, then the 3 of us have a question for you. And that question is...
What are you doing? Please, what are you doing? Please tell us.
God's help them, John!
Oh, Red Hulk sub, thank you so much.
Good
with Amazon Prime, let's go!
Nice.
Exactly.
All right, folks.
Hey, look, so we're pushing to get our partner status with Twitch in 2022, and it's going to take all of you lurking, joining, subbing, using your Amazon Primes. It's not going to be easy. I want Lord Gazumba and Blue Box to both be partnered on Twitch in 2022. Actually, Jay might get partnered sooner. Just maybe we'll see. Oh, look! Thank you, Renoir. What? We got a hype train at the end of the stream. Let's go!
Well, now we have to keep. Now we
Marcus Flores, thank you. I liked your comment earlier too. Holy crap! This has never happened before on LMA. Getting a hype train at the very end of the stream. If anybody else wants to pop in, I don't want to remove your chance to give us a blessing, but I promise you, Thank you, Manda, as always.
Manda, save that for
There we go.
Sunday.
Manda is my secret Santa on Blue Box. So just wait. She's no longer secret, but it's gonna be fun when I get you. It's still secret.
All right. We gotta raid Jay. We got to.
Oh, are you closing off my stream?
Yes, anywhere?
Really?
He's not
really?
going anywhere.
Spot.
No, this is so much fun. Stop. I'll raid Jay. If you got to bounce, go ahead, Thomas. Oh, Robert, let's go. Holy smokes.
So while this hype train is going,
So John, because
let's
I'm
talk
hosting,
about,
I get all the proceeds from today's stream.
You
right? That's how it
can,
works,
yeah,
right?
yeah. When you come on Sunday, I'll hand you a bill, dude. You think I won't? Have I ever been like miserly? No, that's not me. You know that. Yes, it's not for me. It's not about the money. It's about the support and the viewers and the.
I'm coming for your paychecks.
Go ahead, Robert. Sorry.
what I like. I mean, one thing I want to mention is we talked about it a little. For those of you who are watching, and you've heard about this Friday Night Crusades thing, and you're wondering what this is all about. Every Friday night in Discord, I host or I run a Friday night or Castles and Crusades game for members of the community. It is basically show up if the player's handbook is free for digital download from Trollord Games. You can roll up a character. You're more than welcome to join us. You're more than welcome to join us in Discord just to listen in. If you want to listen in, the one thing I suggest is that you pay attention to the Friday Night Crusades chat channel, because you will see the entire story of what happens in that session in the form of memes. It is absolute craziness. It's a lot of fun. You can listen in. If you want to play, you can play. You can see me for more details, but seriously, it is yeah, Amanda's right. It is absolute madness. It is the mad chatters at their finest.
It is. And the meme team. All right. I'm sorry. Like this got off the rails. I had no idea. We're rating Jay. Let's let all these subs and all these gifts finish with their alerts. Thomas, thank you, Mr. Potato Butt. I promise you the last word. You need your 5th last word tonight before I raid Jay.
I think it's my 12th.
Your 12th? Okay, your 12th last word.
There are so many tools out there for you guys as new players or old players to check out. I know I mentioned this earlier. Dungeon Master's Vault is one that I use.
Yes.
It's really fun because you can download all of these files for free, and it's Wizards of the Coast hates this, but it exists. You can automatically generate character sheets and all this stuff. Don't feel afraid to just look up anything on the internet and research stuff about D&D, because it's out there. There are tools. There's people doing it. And apparently John gets the last word because chat decided. But like I said earlier, join the Discord if you haven't. If you're sitting in chat and you haven't joined the Discord, go join the Discord. Someone drop in the freaking link for it. I'll do it really quick. And go check out what we're doing in there. There's good conversation about D&D. There's memes posted every day. There's fan art, there's Castles and Crusades, and there's people to play the game with if you're looking for it right now. I promise it exists.
I love this. And so thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Robert. You're going to see a lot more of these fellas. Evelyn will be back next week as well. She's just battling through all the Amazon work. Deliveries are going through the roof right now in the holiday season. I have been voted to get the last word, and my last word is simply thank you. Thank you, Mad Chatters. Thank you, Thomas. Even thank you, Robert. Begrudgingly.
No, John, it hurts.
We are rating Jay, and it's kicking off now. We got 10 seconds. Stay with us. Let's give Jay a nice pop. He's got a great stream tonight. We love Lord Gazumba. This community is growing like crazy. Thank you, Mad Chatters. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Robert. That is my final word, and I appreciate all of you.
It's a great stream.
Rating. Now, it was a great stream.
Like fun. And we're out.
That was funny. That was really funny. That was so fun. That was like